Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers, the voice of college football. I'm here with my fantastic co-hosts, Gabriel Pickup and Donovan Gibbs. We have a great show here for you tonight, including some recruiting news. Gabe, what do you got for us?
Yeah, first pickup date in a minute is James Cacozo or Cacazo. One of the two pronunciations is probably right. Class of 2027, three-star interior offensive lineman out of Stillwater, New York. Shout out New York. He has committed to Rutgers University, chose us over Penn State, Syracuse, and others, and scouted heavily by Jim Turner, the offensive line coach, the new offensive line coach, I should say, and tight ends coach Scott Vallone. So who knows what this kid has in store? Either way, Scott Vallone knows how players should lay down blocks. So even if he doesn't turn into a tight end and he remains an offensive lineman, still relevant. The kid's 6'3", 292. Which
does he have experience playing tight end?
That I didn't see any statistics for receiving, so I assume not. But 6'3", 292. I love his height as a junior in high school, 6'3". I'm hoping he gets to around 6'5", 6'6". That would be awesome. Number 3 New York prospect, number 37 offensive lineman in the nation.
And who's that offensive lineman we got coming in from Georgia?
Jared Smith, but I think he was here. It's just he didn't play last year. So it's looking bright. He's the second commit to Rutgers. Let me see who the other one is. There was one other guy who was already committed. Let's see. We got 2. Sydney Padilla, the tight end. Sydney Padilla, tight end out of West Orange, New Jersey.
That recruiting class for 27 is looking pretty good, isn't it?
Starting to get there. You know, a lot of teams are still at 0. Now, who knows if either of these guys actually suit up in Scarlet red, but it's a good start.
Absolutely.
For Cacozo, he's most likely going to be an interior guy. I think once he gets to Piscataway, there's going to be a potential that he might get some reps at center. I don't know if he's going to play guard because we've seen at least for the guards that have been here the last 2 years, they aren't really 6'2", 6'3". They're more 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, I got you. I'm trying. This is all out of 247 Sports, by the way, and I actually got the highlights right here. Give me 1 second. I'll pull them up for y'all, and you can.
I can break this down.
Yeah, you can do a little breakdown. Let's see. Share screen. Yep. Allow. Thank you, Google Chrome, and that's just his statistics. Here we go.
Oh wow! For Cacozo, before we get into the tape,
yeah,
we chose Rutgers over Syracuse, Penn State, Maryland, and Virginia Tech. So the school that had James Franklin at it, and the current school that's with James Franklin.
Yeah, and chose us over Matt Campbell, I think is his name, the Iowa State turned Penn State coach.
Yep.
And chose to block Lonergan or Serace, if he gets his starting chance in 2028, 2029, whatever it is, over Rocco Becht or whoever else is going to be with Penn State. So very impressive. Hopefully he doesn't flip.
I just wonder, because I talked about this on the show before. Remember when Wade Collier decommitted from Penn State, then chose Rutgers? Is that starting to become a pattern that we see here where guys are starting to choose Rutgers over Penn State, since at the end of the day, Rutgers and Philly, that recruiting area is not too far away. Plus, they already get recruits from New York.
Yeah, Rutgers is closer to Philly than Penn State is.
They go to Penn State, they don't play, they come to Rutgers.
Bada bing, bada boom. It's the same reason why we lose guys to Temple. All right, so it's not going full screen. All right, there we go.
Woo! Yeah, I want to see highlights of this guy. Let's see if he has any technique.
Should I mute, or do you guys want to hear the PA?
Nah, keep mute.
Keep it real, Gabe.
Facts. All right. I always keep it real.
Yeah, Jason welcome as always. And he's right about Cacozo. His dad played in the NFL for the Chargers. In fact, played in the Super Bowl against the
look at that.
49ers. I believe that was in 95 when the San Francisco 49ers and Steve Young steamrolled the Chargers.
Number 88. That is a receiver number, although I guess it doesn't matter as much anymore.
I want to see the highlights.
You watching them? They available?
I'm not seeing them. It's just one thing on my screen. I still see the 24/7 sports. I'm not seeing the
What
actual.
the heck? Oh, okay. I've been playing his whole. That's what. Okay, my bad. One second.
Technical difficulties on
Yes.
Gabe's part.
One second.
So
yeah. All right.
Did his father also play O-line? Had to be.
No, I believe he played in secondary.
There we go. Y'all see it now? If I
Yeah.
just, all right, cool. Yeah, I've just been reacting for the past minute. All right, here we go.
All right, let's see here.
All right, he's left guard. He made a good decision in space. Was able to take down. That's nice.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He's laying out two people. He's getting the ball.
That's him at tackle. This is also him at tackle. 1-on-1 blocks. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
Looks like he's mostly left, but I would assume he would adapt to left guard, right guard, maybe center.
He is effective on his pulls. At a lot of his pulling clips or something that I'm liking.
When you say pull, you mean like a left tackle?
Whenever, because pause it real fast.
Yeah.
So for offensive linemen, and especially for offensive line coaches, they want to see how well your technique is at pulling, because in modernized football, a lot of the runs are counters, a lot of runs are sweeps to the outside. So they're trying to get big people in space where little people are.
Gotcha.
And that's why they test your technique. They look at how well you're able to move in space, how well are you still able to get contact on your guy, because it comes down to how well you're able to pull and your angle to attacking a defender at the second level or a secondary defender, whether it's a corner or a safety, when you're pulling on the outside for example, a sweep, or for example, for like a screen. So him so far on the two plays that I've seen when he's pulling at tackle has been him getting out of his pull, not showing a give, not really leaning too much in his stance, which is a positive. And both of them have been him lighting up second level defenders, linebackers. I think one of them was a safety as well, coming down into the box. So far, I'm liking the tape.
You know what I'm surprised about? Why Adam hasn't questioned this yet. Why is it the number 2024 and not 2025? Adam, you want to go ahead and ask that question? I got an answer for you, and you might not like it.
What question? Oh, is that because I believe that's because he was injured?
Yeah, he tore his ACL.
So let me get this straight. And by the way, Jason, I stand corrected. His dad was was offensive lineman for the Chargers, drafted in the 3rd round out of Michigan. So let me get this straight. Maybe I get confused, and I need to be helped here. We recruited somebody who didn't play at all his junior year due to an ACL injury.
Correct, but he still has a senior year.
Still has a senior year, and at least the positive here is by the time he gets to Rutgers, he'll be 2 years removed from that injury, bearing he's able to stay healthy during his senior year. So there's a lot of good stuff that you're seeing on tape so far as a sophomore that can be adjusted in his senior year, that starting up next year. I'm guessing last year it was a lot of rehab and just taking that time away to heal up his knee and be able to still be able to move and still be able to stay strong.
You know what?
Be able to handle a lot of responsibilities that he's going to face.
So, Gabe, you showed me pre-injury highlights.
Now we don't have any post.
Yeah,
and we still have 2 minutes here.
How do we know if he's going to be, if he's going to come back and be as effective? I say put the whole.
Probably worked out. I would assume he worked out for coaches.
Okay.
100%. Plus, they're going to have him at the end of next year in the spring. He's definitely going to come to a couple of camps and just see how he moves in front of coaches. I can expect some of the scouts on Shiano's staff to come to some of his games to see if he's still the player that he was back in his sophomore year. And
I don't know.
Once again, this is 2026.
Yeah.
ACL injuries aren't the end-all, be-all like they used to be.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are expecting this either, but it's 6'3", 290. I'll keep these playing in case you guys see anything. 6'3", 290. I expect him to be around 6'5", 6'6", 330 if he wants to get a starting position.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? When I was in my
number 8.
Well, when I was in my mid-20s, I tore my ACL MCL, and PCL.
What the hell happened to you?
I was playing with my school in an intramural softball game, and I was playing left field, and there was a shallow pop-up, and I collided with the shortstop as we were going after the ball, and he dove into my knee. And
I don't like that rep. He went straight up.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, he jumped
my
straight
point
up out of his hand.
Is this one right here?
He's to the right. He's the left tackle. Because from where they are on the field, they're at the right hash. But no, they're at the right hash.
Let's see this.
See, him in space is a looking great so far.
Yeah,
I love seeing him in space. He doesn't hesitate, and he's able to still get the proper angle to get to the linebackers.
Yeah, this guy looks good.
Yeah. All right. I think we got the gist of him. And
the only thing I could say is that he's most likely going to tighten up. His father might see it as well on his tape, and he might have talked to him about this before me already saying it. During his pass sets, he jumped straight up, and that's not something you want to do as an offensive lineman, especially at tackle, because a DN wants to get to your chest.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, great stuff. And you're right about the ACL. When I had 3 ligaments torn in my knee, it took about 9 months, but you do recover, and so I don't think that's going to be a huge impediment.
Yeah, the magics of modern medicine make those injuries that a lot of people saw back in the 80s and the 90s as career enders, because if we're talking about this 20, 30 years ago, this is a guy that was committed, then tore his ACL his junior year. A lot of coaches would start to stray away from it, but seeing how all you need is just some good rehab, some good PT, and you should be back in action by the fall.
Yeah, my cousin's ex-boyfriend, who I met, very cool guy, but obviously some other stuff happened. But my point is, he was a football dreaming hopeful at Temple in their glory days in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Not quite the glory days, but better than now. But got a ACL tear, and it's not quite as easy to come back from that to a professional level as it is just to live day to day, But correct me if I'm wrong, Donovan. You would probably know better.
Mm-hmm.
For offensive linemen, defensive linemen, I guess it would happen a little more, but for offensive linemen, because ACL tears, Achilles tears.
Oh, they happen a lot for offensive linemen, and it's just primarily it happens during games, because you see it a lot of the time in the NFL. They get rolled up on.
Yeah, that's more common because it requires it's non-contact, it's shiftiness, it's coming to a halt from a quick motion really quickly, like we saw with like Derrick Rose, for instance.
Yeah, and it happens typically when your leg is straight and dead and not moving, which is why the number one thing, especially come practices, a coach will always tell you to move your feet, because if you keep your feet moving, that lessens the chance of your leg just being just straight down and someone bumping into it and potentially tearing a ligament.
You know what the worst thing is about recovering from an ACL is right after you get the surgery, just a couple days later, they'll put you on an exercise bike and you got to start pedaling, and it is painful. But once you get into the groove, it's something you can fully recover from. But I got to tell you, I think that Coach Schiano and his staff do deserve a lot of credit for this incoming recruiting class that we're having in 26. I mean, ranked 37th in the country, ranked 10th in the Big Ten, and have some really good people coming in. Desir Carter, Messiah Tilson, 2 4-stars that are I think they're going to be impact players for Rutgers. And if Rutgers keeps recruiting like this, RJ
Wortman,
chance they could be the next Indiana.
RJ Wortman and the running back from Michigan, I forget his name at the moment. He's going to be lights out too in 2 years. Number 1 running back in all of Michigan, which that's a pretty big football state.
Yeah, absolutely. And more and more players are turning down schools like Michigan, Penn State, even University of Georgia to come here. So a very positive development.
Yeah, that's a good segue too.
But the current state of college sports it's at the end of the day, it still has to pass one more branch of government. It still has to pass the judicial branch. The judges have to agree to all of this. It's just an order signed by the president. It still has to be checked by other branches of the government. But if it does get passed, it would be effective immediately on August 1st, which
Yeah.
means this wave of recruits 2026 and onwards would be going by those same rules.
Wouldn't that also put an end to Trinidad Chambliss, or would he get grandfather rules?
I think that's where I'm very confused about it, because the way that the window is, since we're just going to get straight into it, one of the things that the executive order brought back, Trump's executive order, let me give it the proper name, but the name kind of confuses me. The executive order is called the Urgent National Action to Save College Sports. One of the guidelines in that executive order that a lot of people have pointed out is that they're going back to the former rule where you're getting one free transfer, and if you transfer one more time, you have to sit out another year. But there's a incentive for you to finish out school where if you graduate, you can get another free transfer.
You can transfer as a grad, so you could be a grad student quarterback.
Yeah, and you have a 5-year period to play. You have 5 years eligibility, or 4-year eligibility and a 5-year window.
Yeah, so when President Trump was campaigning for office, he repeatedly said he wants to make America great again. And little did we know that he is going to make college football great again, because what does the executive order do? It limits you to one transfer. It severely restricts these collectives, which have been completely out of control and practically made college football a pay-for-play scheme.
Oh, that's another thing. I think he's getting rid of pay-for-play and keeping NIL just to name, image, likeness.
Yeah, and he's limiting eligibility for players to 5 years, so we don't have people who are 67 playing in college football with all of these exemptions. Now, it's only an executive order, but here's the thing, practically speaking. An executive order has the force of law and doesn't need congressional approval as it pertains to federal agencies in the executive branch. So it is binding as law on the agencies in the executive branch. What does that mean? Trump ordered that agencies in the executive branch restrict funding to these universities if they do not comply with his order. And let me tell you what that means. Universities are going to comply with the order because they don't want to lose funding. So it was kind of a nice roundabout way.
My thing that I'm confused about that is a lot of these schools are private institutions that would be affected by this rule, at least in the FBS level. There are some state colleges at the FBS level, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Syracuse. I think Syracuse also, at least in New York, are under that umbrella of CUNY. So
Syracuse is private, I believe.
Then Syracuse is not in that. Rutgers is a private institution. So a lot of these schools are private institutions that don't receive as much federal funding as schools that are by the state would, which is why my thing is, how would these schools react to that, knowing that this doesn't really affect us? We don't really get paid by the federal government.
So you're saying that it could benefit a Miami, a Louisville, and maybe just still hurt? Like it could hurt.
I think the Miamis, the Louisville schools that are private institutions, I don't know how much they truly fear the consequences, because at the end of the day, they didn't get paid from the federal government to begin with. Trump is saying primarily that if you don't go by these guidelines, we will restrict or cut federal funding to your institution.
Right. So you know what that means? That means that for now, public universities are not going to comply with it if it puts them at a huge disadvantage, as opposed to private universities. So I think there's something that's going to be worked out. There's going to be an agreement worked out, probably at the conference level, so that there's more equity and that situation does not occur.
Yeah.
But Donovan's right, though, that ultimately Congress needs to get involved and pass legislation, because while this is progress and may have some impact, it won't have the universal impact that it otherwise might. But I will say Big Ten, the head of the Big Ten, the commissioner, Tony Petitti, was quoted as saying that the Big Ten Conference would like to thank President Trump for his leadership and continuing efforts to protect college athletics, and urges Congress to pass legislation addressing the critical issues undermining long-term stability. So I think that this is a positive step. And Jason is right. Rutgers is public. Louisville is public. USC, of course, is not public. So it's a positive step, but the details are going to have to be worked out.
It's interesting.
No, you go, Gabe. My bad.
All right, no worries. It's interesting that the Big Ten president. You said the Big Ten president? Commissioner, my bad. It's interesting that he says that, and because it has pros and cons for the Big Ten specifically. The pros would be teams that are on the lower tier conferences, or teams on the higher tier conferences that get high school recruits. They're more likely to stick around and have more incentive to do so. But the cons would be the Big Ten is a poacher conference in terms of talent from the FCS, from the non-Power 4 conferences and FBS.
Group of 6. It's a poacher of the Group of 6. Look at the Indiana team. They brought in Curcinetti, a former Group of 6 coach. He brought his players from James Madison. They took guys from the Group of 6. Some of their better defensive players came from the American, the Sun Belt. So you were talking about the commissioner. I want to just quickly talk about Indiana's reaction to it, because they were on the side of it, and they said they agree with what the Big Ten is siding with in terms of this executive order, which surprises me. The team that I know would agree with it is Rutgers, because Rutgers would get a strong boost from this, because a lot of their players want to be able to transfer out besides graduating, which would cut out a lot of their transfers this year if it actually happened. But for Indiana's sake, you won a national championship bringing in over 20 transfers to your team, and most of those transfers were starters. So it's kind of hurt their cause.
Like, it's still ethical how Indiana did that too. It's not like in Ohio State and Oregon where it's a given that they're going to get a bunch of talent. They, even though it wasn't homegrown, they still created their talent pool. It's not like it was handed to them. So Indiana, I would agree. Indiana is one of the schools that hurts the most from this, because all of a sudden, for the first time in their 100+ years, they have an appeal, and they don't get to thrive off of it in the way that in Ohio State and Alabama, whoever has quite thrived off of it. But for Rutgers, because this is a Rutgers show, I once again feel, I guess, 50-50 about it. I for the same reasons that I talked about. There's players that don't quite get to play their freshman, sophomore years, and they want to go to a Temple. They want to go to a Duke. They want to go to another team that has been taken seriously in the past or could have a good future, but aren't quite there yet. And they get to play and see if they can test them. But at Rutgers, since they don't play for a year or two, they want out. And for those players, I think that would be beneficial. It, like Adam has preached on the show, it teaches patience. It teaches keeping your workouts going. It teaches earning your coach's trust. But then on the other side, while that does help us, it can also hurt us in the sense that, flip the bill a little bit. What if there's like a player, and look at our transfer portal this past year. It was almost all players besides one cornerback from Maryland who came in from out of conference schools, from non-Power 4 conference schools, and we played a little bit of money ball. And so there, maybe we'll still get some of those players because you can still transfer once, twice if you graduate, but that does hurt our chances if our whole defense is juniors that want to declare or seniors that run out of eligibility. That's where I'm concerned.
Well, I think, number one, I do agree with the one transfer rule, because, you have these kids transferring from school to school to school. I don't think that's right. I think, you should have the option to transfer. But it shouldn't be unlimited, and these kids need to learn the value of perseverance, okay? And while balancing that with their ability to leave if they so choose, but not in an unlimited fashion. The other thing is this: name, image, and likeness. When the Supreme Court delivered its decision in NCAA versus Alston, what it contemplated was that players would be able to enter into contracts, let's say with Starbucks or with any corporate entity, and make money off of their name, image, and likeness. It did not contemplate collectives, in which you have schools like Texas A&M, Michigan, Ohio State, basically paying these players to come there. Look at Bryce Underwood, $9 or $10 million. Look at Arch Manning. Look at Carson Beck, offered $6 million from Miami. That's not what name, image, and likeness contemplated. So I do like the fact that it severely restricts what collectives can do. I think it's good for college football. But what you can expect is probably a lawsuit either by the players or by
the agents.
And the agents.
By the agents. The agents are going to lose a lot of the money in this because they are the guys that are the middleman where they represent a lot of these players and get them to these schools. They get a cut of that money. That's why you typically, when you see a lot of these players transfer, I saw it during my time here at LIU. I've heard about it as well during a lot of the players at Rutgers who ended up leaving. They go through an agent. A lot of this time is them. They're talking to the agent is talking to these teams. The agent gives them that information of these teams. They take a visit, then talk to the coaches, and then if things all bode well, the player commits to that team and gets the money. That means the agent would get around 20% of that cut. A lot of these agencies, and specifically a lot of these agents that focus on college basketball or college football, because college sports is one of the highest grossing revenue avenues of sports or entertainment here in the United States, they're going to lose out on significant amounts of money because a lot of these guys are getting deals straight out of high school, straight out of their first or second year of college.
Yeah, that's true. And if there is a lawsuit, I suspect that they will lose because I don't think that the order is unconstitutional. I think it strikes a careful balance between giving students the freedom to move about as they wish, but it does put reasonable guardrails on what has become a system that is unregulable. I mean, you see these kids going wherever they want for however much money that they're offered. It's allowing these rich schools to have a consistent advantage, and it really is undermining the whole purpose of college football and the competitive landscape that it's supposed to be built on. So I suspect that the executive order will have some impact, but because of the private-public distinction, there have to be details worked out at the conference level. And ultimately, like Donovan said, Congress has to get off its ass and do something. And I think this is one of the areas, hopefully, that there will be bipartisan support for regulations that I think are good for universities and good for actually the student athletes. Is it good for agents? No, but quite frankly, I don't care about agents. I mean, I did like the movie Jerry Maguire, don't get me wrong. But, people in the real world are not like Jerry Maguire, okay? They are all about the money. And you know what? I don't think that that's good for college football. And ultimately, I think this is a positive step.
Well, the thing is, the state of college football right now, it's always been about the money. It's been about the money since the inception of the word student athletes. The reason why they created the title student athletes was a way to create a loophole around paying players back in the 60s and the 70s. So right now, at least for Rutgers State, because Dylan Lonergan, good thing that this is a grandfathered, most likely going to be a grandfathered rule because Lonergan's on his second transfer here, and he's only a junior. So he would be technically ineligible, and he would have to set out a year if this rule didn't include the grandfather, which is why I see a lot of schools saying, hey, we're good with this, but we got to have this set up for the 2026-2027 year. The 2027-2028 year instead of 26-27.
I also wonder for players who have already transferred once, like they didn't transfer. Say they transferred with their vision set on 1 year, and they're a sophomore or they're a fresh or they're a junior. All of a sudden, they're forced into an extra year, an extra 2 years, and whether that's a good or bad thing, I'm not going to give my opinion on that. But what I am going to say is all of a sudden they're stuck in a position that they didn't think would be an issue before a week ago.
I say that it's a somewhat of an issue because it takes a significant amount of power and leverage that players had, and it gives it back to the schools. And we've seen this before. If you give a lot of these schools or institutions an inch, they will turn that inch into 50 miles. That's what they did previously when these things were in court back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. This is actual things that you can do research on based off these cases. But I kind of disagree with the one transfer rule, primarily because regular students transfer whenever they want. They have the ability to do so without being academically ineligible for an entire year. And you have to also play in the role that a lot of these schools are doing. A lot of these schools replace coaches left and right. That puts a lot of players in sticky situations because a lot of the times now their scholarships are in the hands of people that might want to keep them on their team or move them from their team. I remember when Deion Sanders first made his appearance to Colorado, that first spring meeting, where he said, I came in and I got a couple of luggage to bring in with me, and that luggage became players.
Well, I think that I see Jason O's comment here, which I'm going to respectfully disagree with a part of it. I do think that paying players is a problem when it exists as it does now, when the schools that have the biggest donors can essentially throw money at a player and get a player to come there because they have the ability to throw more money at them than other schools. It creates a competitive disadvantage for schools who do not have the same type of NIL. So there's antitrust issues, I would argue, with that, because the rich schools wind up having the competitive advantage simply because they can throw, say, $10 million at a Bryce Underwood or $4 million at an Arch Manning. Players transferring, on the other hand, I think it's a problem when you allow players unlimited transfers because, first of all, the whole purpose is to develop players. Development is a big thing in college football and something that is a predicate to, playing effectively and being in the NFL. How do schools develop players if they don't know if they're going to be staying more than a year? I think you have to balance that against the player's freedom to transfer, which they still do have one transfer. So I think what the executive order does is it tells these universities, the public ones, the writing is on the wall, and we're going to cut your funding if you don't comply with it, which is going to propel other schools, namely to the private schools, are going to have to come together and come to some agreement because they're not going to abide by it while the private schools don't have to. So there's going to have to be some agreement. That's why I say it's a step in the positive direction.
Yeah, that's where I'm saying with you. A lot of these private schools are going to have to talk about this because at the end of the day, right now, this is very one-sided towards public schools have to follow this rule. But I agree with what Jason O is currently saying about how a lot of the schools that currently have won a lot of national championships, they're getting money from boosters that are alumni. A lot of these guys that are funding these programs are alumni. Michigan's top donor, the guy that owns the Miami Dolphins, he's a Michigan alum. Mark Cuban gave around $20 million to Indiana. He's an Indiana alum.
Should never be allowed.
Michigan, the Barstool owner too, Dave Portnoy.
Oh, Portnoy. Yeah, these are alums trying to better their teams. This is more. It kind of reminds me of I don't know, Adam, if you watch basketball like that, Gabe, you kind of do. Remember when the second apron in the NBA came in because everybody kept going to the Warriors because the owners of the Warriors didn't mind paying a luxury tax because they went over the cap. This is kind of a similar rule that's happening to these donors. They're getting punished for showing love to their school and giving back to their school.
They should. I'm not saying they should get punished, but you cannot have a system in NIL where, first of all, these collectives are basically paying players to play, which NIL never contemplated. And number two, it gives the rich schools that already had an advantage an even more insurmountable advantage. So what we need to do, in my opinion, is go even further. We need to have a cap on what universities can spend on athletes each
now
year.
We're in the same playing field. That's been something I've been saying that's going to be a good idea.
Yeah, because Lane Kiffin has $32 million for LSU.
Didn't we already have this happen like less than a year ago?
No, they haven't.
No.
When it came to the executive order, which is why the people that were talking to President Trump about this, because I'm not going to get political on this space. We all have our own Nick Saban was the man that was talking to Trump.
Yeah.
So Nick Saban has been outright on occasion talking about how much he hates NIL. So you're you're getting a viewpoint on NIL from a guy whose perspective is anti-NIL.
And Nick Saban would have benefited the most out of anyone in college football history from NIL.
Yeah, well, he has a philosophical point though, which is when these players came to college, of course they got full scholarships, but the whole purpose of college football was, hey, these kids are here to increase their value for the NFL. Now, I'm not saying that was a fair system. I do think the players should get paid. Players should get paid.
Players should get played.
Yeah, I think the players should get paid, but I think there has to be a reasonable limit on it in the form of a salary cap, because it's not just about individual player or players. It's about having at least some degree of an equal opportunity to compete, and you have to find out where that balance is. I'm not saying I know the answer to that, but this is at least a step in the right direction. As far as Notre Dame goes, Notre Dame has an inherent limit on its recruiting because Notre Dame, unlike most schools, has academic standards for its athletes.
Yeah,
which
same with Virginia.
I don't understand that at all. It's like, I'm not saying you should admit anybody, but players come to universities with unique and special abilities that I think justify some leeway in their admissions criteria. So, I mean, but that's a separate issue. My point is, we've got to do something, and this is at least trying to strike a better balance for college football.
If you're Coach Schiano, let's just play this game. If you're Coach Schiano, you hear the news about this, are you happy about it, or do you think this hurts your recruiting?
Schiano, I think you're happy about it, but I don't think, I would say it benefits us, but it only benefits us maybe 60 or 65% to hurting us 30 or 35%.
I think Schiano's happy about it, but in a very limited way. The way that Rutgers is going to enhance their recruiting and get the 4 and 5 stars is going to be winning games.
Yeah. I think we're better now than we were a year ago, because remember when Schiano spoke after the loss to Minnesota, he was basically saying it's me and only me that's out here helping recruit financially. And then we get our NIL established literally the day after, coincidentally. And now we have something that is sort of limiting universities from poaching. I mean, listen, we can still get anyone we recruit from high school taken away from us. And I don't think there will ever be something done to fix that, nor do I think there should be. But at the very least, it caps the window. And so I'm happy about that. But on the other hand, it still is a question of how much power should be given to the players. And I've always been a power to the people kind of guy. So I kind of feel they're what makes the system work. And if they want to be able to transfer more than once, who are we to judge? But I don't think they should lose eligibility. Maybe just they shouldn't get financially poached. That's my only thing.
Well, I think go ahead, Don.
I was going to say, if I'm Coach Schiano, you're looking at this at a crossroad, because for the last 2-3 years, you've had recruited talent, especially in the portal. This year and last year, you went heavy into the portal, and you were getting guys that were on that was on that thin line of, are they eligible for real? Are these just 5th-year guys trying to chase a check? You've already did that, and you're currently still doing that with recruiting a lot of 5th-year guys already as it is, and guys that are already on their second transfer. Like we said before, Dylan Lonergan, the star QB or arguably the star name from this transfer portal for Rutgers, is currently on his second transfer. So you're looking at this dang, we kind of needed these rules, because these rules are helping us currently with how our team is currently set up. But you also are going to be able to retain talent. You're going to retain talent.
You know what I just realized?
That's been their issue.
I just lost my dream. If this goes through, I just lost my dream of getting Drew Mestamaker on Rutgers.
Well, I think that, like you said, you have to strike a careful balance. And I think a lot of universities, I think the best way to regulate this, it's going to upset universities and it's going to upset players too. And like a good settlement in any lawsuit, when both parties aren't very happy with it, you're doing something right. Now, Jason's right. NIL has been a farce. And that is the problem, because immediately these collectives turned it into pay for play. And if you're going to have regulations around that, they should be in the form of some type of salary cap. But the other issue that no one's talking about and should be talking about is there should be one portal opportunity once a year, not twice.
There is for this year. There was.
For this year, there was. And that should be the end of it. Now, I don't know if it should be in February. I don't know. And the rule about players having an open 30-day window to transfer when a coach leaves a school, I mean, that can really devastate a school. So there has to be regulations on that too. But if I'm a player,
I think the rules should be, yes, there should be a 30-day period, but the coach should have a cap on how many players he's bringing from that current school to the new school that he goes to. You can't do something yet he did.
Have you guys heard of, well, obviously, Adam, you have. I'm not sure if you have, Donovan. If you haven't, you will. But you guys know about like non-disclosure agreements and whatnot?
Yes.
Yeah,
So I'm kind of leaning towards that route when it comes to a coach. If a coach gets fired and then hired, like a James Franklin, take whoever the hell you want. But if a coach, pulls a Lane Kiffin and leaves Ole Miss for LSU, I don't think you should be able to take anyone.
You're referring to non-compete.
No contact. You're thinking of no contact.
Non-compete, yeah. Not non-disclosure, non-compete.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. And isn't there some of that in place already where you cannot?
Yeah, because that's tampering rules. But as we see right now, the NCAA are turning blind eyes to certain schools regarding that.
I'm actually happy, like, not just because I don't like Penn State, but for the power to the people thing I was talking about. I'm happy that James Franklin took away every Nittany Lion there was. But like,
that was all his guys.
That sucked for Ole Miss. That did.
That was all his guys. For Lane Kiffin as well, you can arguably say a lot of those guys came for Lane. The thing is, for Rutgers right now, Schiano is here to stay. So a lot of these guys are coming for Schiano. They're going to stay for Schiano. I just wonder about this because this rule, out of any conference that it favors the SEC again. And it makes sense. Yes, the SEC is one of those, or based off of this executive order, all those schools are able to. Most of these schools are private institutions. Most of these schools already are dealing with the issues of teams getting poached since NIL has came in. The last couple of years has been Big Ten dominance because a lot of these players are going to Big Ten schools because Oregon, one of these schools in the Big Ten, already has a Nike sponsorship. When it comes to Michigan, they have a Jordan sponsorship. When it comes to Ohio State, alumni are dumping in money. They currently work with the Cleveland Cavaliers as well. When it comes to Indiana, they're dumping in money. Mark Cuban has been their top donor. Looking at the SEC, they were paying a lot of players under the table, and now that they're seeing that it's a fair game, they're not winning that because a lot of other schools have more money than what the SEC currently has.
That's why I would say it's not a fair game because whether it's SEC, Big Ten, or any other conference, the schools with the most money have a competitive advantage. You have to try to make it as equal as possible. That's why a cap on what you can pay players, I think would go a long way towards achieving some type of more equal competition across schools and eliminate the advantage the SEC has. So you have to take capping what you can pay players coupled with, severe restrictions on collectives, coupled with, a one-time transfer rule. And I think that that's a better balance than what we have now.
It just depends on if it's grandfathered in for the players or not.
It should be.
It has to be because it is not the entire FBS is in trouble because they have a lot of guys that are 2-year, 3-year.
Oh no, I'm not talking about them.
I'm not just talking about Power 4 right now. I'm talking the entire thing, including the group of 6. They have a lot of players that are on these rosters that are on their second transfer that are 5th year, 6th year, 7th year guys already.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about players that have transferred once and they still have 2 or 3 years of eligibility.
Absolutely, they have to be grandfathered.
Yeah. Like, imagine if Baylor was stuck with DJ Lagway for another 2 or 3 years.
Imagine Lagway not being able to move. I'm visualizing it as if they don't grandfather it is Trinidad Chambliss can't play football this year.
Yeah. After all the BS
he
that
can't
he went
play.
through. By the way,
that was going to be able to play.
He totally should not have won that case, but that's
Jason's right that most successful schools were the ones willing to break him, but now it's all above board. The problem is it's above board with the same problems. And I think that is something that needs to be fixed. Now, as far as Rutgers goes, I don't really think it's really is going to have any impact. I think Schiano always wanted to pay players, but I don't think Schiano would agree that the current system of paying players is equitable. But bottom line is Rutgers has to win for players that want to go there.
Shiano witnessed Penn State paying players under the radar since before NIL became a thing. I'm sure he, of all people, wants the players paid. It's just a matter of competitive advantage, like you said.
It's just when it comes to players moving, because we've seen so far players go from D2 to FCS or FCS to FBS. We saw this just right now with a player in Ted Hurst. He's going to be a draft guy. He's going to be a draft pick in the upcoming NFL draft. He's supposed to be a top 100 player. He came from Valdosta State, then went transferred again, and now he's going to be in the NFL. So we're seeing players be able to move up levels so they can get more notoriety with NFL scouts. We see it time and time again. We saw it with just Elijah Surratt. He's another player that just did this.
What do you guys think about the transfer, like going from, let's say he transfers from Fairleigh Dickinson to hold up. Let me. So he transfers from Fairleigh Dickinson to Quinnipiac or Rhode Island or something.
Oof.
He has the year of his life. All of a sudden, teams like Ohio State, teams like Michigan want him, but he can't go there. What do you think about that? A player like that?
That screws those players that are stuck at the FCS level and want to move up. Right now, if this rule was here last year, the Rutgers doesn't get Eric O'Neal. Because O'Neal would be on his second transfer from Long Island to JMU and then JMU to Rutgers.
Okay, so that's a great point. And so maybe there can be an exception to the one transfer rule when it comes to transferring up to a conference, such as the SEC or the Big Ten. But the one transfer rule,
like that's where the rule should be. There should be an exception. At least you should be able to have two transfers. You're only allowed to transfer once on that same level. That means if you're an FCS player, you only have one ability to transfer to another FCS school. If you're moving up, that shouldn't be something that hinders you.
That's a good point. I think that's a reasonable exception, Donovan.
But that would need to be an amendment that I don't know if Congress could think of.
I don't think Nick Saban is telling Trump that, saying, "Hey, some of these guys actually move up and transfer to schools so they can get better opportunities to go to the NFL." Because Adam, yes, it's about development to make it to the 3-letter league, but you can develop as much as you want. If you're playing at a smaller school, that's going to affect how much people are able to view your film. It affects if you get invited to a lot of these senior bowls, whether it's the Shrine Bowl, whether it's the U.S. Army Bowl, whether it's the Reese's Senior Bowl. It also affects when you get drafted. A lot of these guys from smaller schools get drafted from rounds 5 through 7. You're not going to see a guy that comes from FCS get drafted in rounds 1 through 3. That affects how much money you make in the NFL.
All right,
that's true. That's a great point.
All right, so let's have an exception where let's say player 1 from Loser University plays really well and transfers to Penn State, and then wants to transfer, I don't know, to LSU. If you have an exception that says the one transfer rule is limited to transfers within the same level of conference, then it preserves upward mobility while still restricting transfers at the highest level. So
that's where it should be. That's honestly that's the best move for the NCAA if they're going to figure out this order. At the end of the day, this order still has to get past the judiciary branch. A judge has to agree to the order or agree to some parts of this order, because I truly view, from based off of this executive order, there's only going to be 2 things that get passed by the judges. I think they're going to pass the idea that schools aren't going to be able to create shadow companies in order to pay players, because that's how they were paying a lot of these players. They were saying, "Oh, we're giving them a promotion deal with this brand," despite the fact that this brand doesn't exist. And if you look at the accounting of this brand and how they get their money, is getting funneled right back to the school. I think they're going to shut that down, because not only does that set a price tag for all the players, it sets a cap automatically. It also creates a world where a lot of these players are just going to have to get brand deals, which what NIL was originally back in 2021. It was players getting brand deals.
And that's the way it should be.
What do you guys think about this? I don't mind this necessarily. You transfer up or stay at your level once, and if you have to transfer again, you have to move down.
I think you are able to transfer up a level once if you want to move in your same level. Like, for example, let's say for what just happened recently over this transfer portal, if someone of Josh Hoover's stature who transferred into TCU then wants to transfer to Indiana, he would have to sit out a year because he's playing in the same level of competition. I think moving different schools like that on your second time should be something that gets penalized. But you moving up, you shouldn't get affected by that.
It's funny that Dylan Raiola effectively is doing this already.
Poor Dylan Raiola. A tragic story for Mr. Raiola. As he transfers to the Oregon Ducks, thinking he's going to be the next great QB, what happens? You want to fill it in for me?
Dante Moore decides to go back. He says, the Jets are going to draft me?
All right, it gives him another year to rest and heal up that leg. I think that's what a lot of schools are going to start doing now.
Yeah.
When it comes to transferring players, that's something that I don't know if the NCAA is going to be able to fix. So that's a loophole.
That's
a nasty loophole.
But like CJ Campbell, for instance, he could have done that.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the problems with the one transfer rule is that what happens with players like Raiola who transfer to Oregon and then Dante Moore stays and they realize they're not going to play. I mean, there are individual circumstances where it could be a problem, but I think on balance, it's better. And I think this executive order, what it really is going to do is force these universities to come to some collective agreement in their conferences to have limitations that benefit and limit everyone. And so it is going in the direction of more of an equal competitive field than what it is now, which is the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, I got one question.
I know we didn't mention this one thing because it doesn't really affect football, but banning the idea of professional players coming back to college, I'm happy that's going to be something that gets passed. That's going to get passed.
Because we already saw that in basketball.
We're seeing it in basketball. There's 100% chance that it could happen in football if they don't pass that.
Wait, what are you saying? Now, they should be restricted?
They should. If once you go pro, you can't go back. You should not be able to go back.
I agree.
Yeah. I think it's once you declare, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why the importance of if you're making an adult decision when you're declaring for the draft. You're saying, yes, I want to go. You're basically applying for a job and you're getting out of college. You shouldn't be able to have that chance to bounce back into college once you already made that decision.
100% right.
I wonder how this would affect J.R. Smith, who went from Knicks, Cavs, Lakers, blah, 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 retires. And then because he came from high school, he said, you know what? I'm going to be on Alabama's golf team.
Give me a break.
I'm looking at it as players that ended up not going the college route, and then they wanted to go pro, and now they have 4 years of eligibility. For example, Zaire Wade. That was a player that tried to do that with UCLA. We're seeing it currently with a former player that played overseas do that with Baylor. I'm saying for at least for football, there could be instances where guys that go to potentially the UFL or something of that nature and say, hey, I left a year early. A lot of guys can say, hey, I had this amount of eligibility left. Some guys can say, hey, I came from a JUCO program and then I played 1 year in the NFL, 1 year in football, 1 year in college football, then went to the NFL. They still have eligibility coming back.
How do you guys think this affects the NFL? What does the NFL think about this?
This helps the NFL because now this is going to have guys actually go commit to and get declared for the draft. For the last 2-3 years, a lot of guys that were draft eligible decided to stay back a year and just go in the portal. Dante Moore is a good example of that.
Dante Moore, Jalen Milroe, he was a chance to be the number 1 pick, stays at Alabama, and then becomes a second rounder.
Third.
Was it third? Jeez.
Let me ask you guys this question. Do you think that the NFL should be allowed to draft players coming out of high school?
No.
Why not?
The thing is, you're able to do that in basketball because basketball, they're trying to say it's a very physical sport. Yes, it's physical, but the NFL, you're playing, you want an 18-year-old fresh out of high school playing up against a guy that's in year 5, year 6, that's already 27, 26 years old.
Like, how good would Malachi Toney be right now in the NFL?
Well, I guess the logic of the NFL would be, hey, this guy's not going to start for a few years, but we want to get him and develop him. And if they can do that in basketball, why can't they do it in football? I think Donovan's right. I think there is a difference.
It is the difference in just how physicality plays in this sport.
Yeah,
basketball, you're able to get away with that because basketball isn't as physical. In football, you're putting your body on the line every single play that you do. When it comes to basketball, a lot of players are able to have longer careers, and some are able to play good at where they are at that age compared to adults. For example, Luka Doncic won the EuroLeague MVP at 16 years old, and he was playing against guys that were in their mid-20s to early 30s in Europe.
Well, the
NFL is not a sport where you're able to have young players be able to take over games or take over teams in that nature because they're not developed yet physically, which is once again where college, that 3-year rule makes sense because you're getting bigger in college. I can show you a picture of how I looked in high school compared to what I looked my junior year in college, and you're going to see I'm more toned, I have more muscle mass, I'm able to move more weight. If you're going to try to put 18-year-olds fresh out of high school, guys that are not even in good strength programs at that, into the NFL, that's too big of a gap. That's too big of a leap in so little of time because the NFL all season, you're not going to be able to build all that muscle in the span of 4 to 5 months.
You're 100% right. I can show you guys a picture of me in high school, and I can show you guys a picture of me now. Unfortunately, I'm not as toned, and so unfortunately, I went in the opposite direction. So
I think the difference is that in college basketball, freshmen are playing. The top freshmen are the best players in the country. In football, that's so incredibly rare.
Yeah,
because it's a different speed of the game and just a different style of physicality. And also, the NBA, they've been trying it for the longest, trying to have players expedited to the NBA by doing like G League Ignite or Overtime Elite.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That was my next question. That's why I asked what you think the NFL thinks about this, is because I was going to ask you if the NFL didn't like it, would they go the NBA route and say, hey, guys, if you don't want to play college, come join our practice squads for a year?
I thought they were going to do that with how the UFL currently is, because the NFL is worse with the UFL on certain things. They take rules from them. They have referees that were at the NFL that didn't do as good of a job. They say, hey, I'm put you on assignment to the UFL to call games to build development there. I would say, why not have these UFL teams be kind of like how in the MLB there's farm systems where players go to single A or double A or triple A. Let that be that system for players that if they don't want to go to college, that's an option for them, because not only does that grow football year round, you will have a reason to watch spring football just as much as you would to watch fall football with the NFL, because you're going to see guys that are top prospects play. Not just against high school talent, but against talent that matches them as well.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I think that's pretty much everything I have on the subject. You know, I didn't really I knew the rules, but it's kind of tough to think about what everything means when you just see it on a piece of paper on an executive order.
It's not about the rules per se. It's more about, can these rules be exploited? Because on both sides have exploited rules at some point. When it comes to the players have exploited the amount of eligibility you had. The idea of Michael Finley being able to transfer to 5 schools and play over 7 years during that span should not be allowed. But also, we've seen in the past where there's been college players, guys that have been 4 stars, 5 stars, that were basically don't have money, barely getting food, and they tell you about those experiences when they played back in the day and how much they actually would have loved NIL now if it was there for them when they were in college. So we saw the NCAA exploit the rules before. Not only just, for example, just how the old NCAA games were, where they would put players that were actual students on the cover or in the game and not give them any sort of financial, financial compensation, the Steve Bannon rule. And we've seen how the players are able to exploit the rules. These executive order right now is more focused on, are these rules able to find exploitative loopholes that would affect the game still? And right now, I can say 2 to 3 of those rules do have that, because there's a lot of gray area right now.
You're 100% right. And what compounds that problem is that universities get such huge deference from courts. Courts typically don't want to get involved in university affairs, so it lets them exploit the rules without accountability. So these guardrails are going to introduce more equal competition and hopefully stem that. And speaking of competition, guys, rumor has it that there's a game tonight. Now, Gabe, you're a big basketball groupie or something. So Michigan and Connecticut tonight.
Oh, Michigan is going to
Arizona.
They're going to do what Michael Irvin was doing to them Gatorade coolers after those Miami playoff games.
With that being said, UConn has won 2 in the last 3 years. So I guess counting
they
them
haven't
out.
played a team like Michigan.
When I think of Michigan, I think of the Fab Five, and I think of the timeout that Chris Webber called.
UConn did just beat Duke, though. Duke is
if that Fab Five team played against the current Michigan team fully healthy.
Oh yeah,
the 2025 Michigan would put up 100 on the Fab Five before the Fab Five even get to put up 50.
But what do you think that UConn beating Duke do anything for you though? Because that was a big win.
Duke blew that game. That was it's just
UConn had those shots.
The last 4 losses of Duke in their history of playing college basketball for the last year and a half have been them blowing games that they had double-digit leads in. They did this last year in the Final Four against Houston.
Yep.
You know what? Let me tell you, I feel for the point guard at Duke because he had a mental error when he got that pass.
Hey, he'll be fine. He'll make the league.
He's gonna make. I don't know. Caden Boozer should stay another year. The only Boozer twin that should leave for the draft is Cameron, and I still don't think his skills are going to translate good to the NBA.
I do think it's good karma though that Carlos Boozer was waving goodbye to the TCU fans, and then or not TCU. Who did they face in the Sweet 16? Was it TCU?
Yeah, it was TCU.
He was waving goodbye to them, and then the next game they had to look in the mirror and wave goodbye to their reflection.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to maybe agree a little bit here with Jason O. That Fab Five team was something. And I don't know if that Fab Five team would lose tonight.
That Fab Five team was not
based on
7-footers in spacing. That Michigan has been the most efficient 3-point shooting team in this tournament. Best defensive team. The only player that has gotten his game off against Michigan this year has been Philon Jr. in the tournament when he had 35. And he took 25 shots to get that.
I was going to say, what about what's his name, Fletcher Lawyer in the Big Ten championship?
I'm talking just strictly the tournament. No one has put up a performance against Michigan outside of Philon Jr. And Alabama still lost by 25.
38% is what they're holding their opponents to.
The thing is, the Fab Five relied heavily on the inside presence of Chris Webber and Juwan Howard.
Yes.
Added Ade, what's his name? Ade Mara, 7'2". They're not getting
Mara?
that off. Yeah.
I'm so conflicted on Mara.
They got 2 7-footers right now, or basically
Mara is
holding teams to sub 30% from inside.
Yep. This is
restricted.
This is off topic, but Mara, he is such a good defensive player, but he just looks so out of it on offense. He's like the one guy on Michigan that could be a weakness.
He had 26 against Arizona.
When a lot of that.
He did do that on Koa Pete. Yeah, he did do that on Koa Pete.
I'm not talking about Koa Pete. I'm talking about Krivas. Krivas was Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year and arguably one of the best 7-footers in the nation. And he was still putting 26 on him.
When you guys talk about Michigan, it does bring up a bad memory. It goes back to 89, P.J. Carlismo and Seton Hall go up against the Wolverines and come within an inch of defeating them for the national championship. I think UConn's going to upset Michigan tonight. I think Michigan, when I looked at first half against Alabama, it was tight. And Michigan, I know I'm an outlier here, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than the experts think. But who knows? I could be wrong yet again, as I have been so many
times. The only thing for them
it was a 5. I think it was a 6-point game in the Sweet 16. Michigan against Alabama. Michigan wins that game 90-77. 90-77.
Yep.
Right.
UConn likes being counted out, though. That's the one.
What
thing.
happened with Arizona, though? Did Arizona not show up, or were they that?
Arizona just got downright dominated. That's
Michigan
what it was. Michigan was single-handedly the better team. And the
Shout out
thing
my
is,
boy
going
Namari
into that game, Arizona was arguably the best team in the country. Both of these teams were number one in the nation throughout the entire season.
You're right.
Shout out my boy Namari Burnett. He's I had him on my NBA rumors and news show a couple of years ago. He follows me on there. Big fan of his starting in that Michigan starting five. He's got the defensive clamps, man. I don't know if y'all saw. He had like 2 or 3 straight possessions of forcing offensive
fouls. I would say if Dan Hurley is able to pull that off after beating Duke, after barely beating Duke in the Elite Eight, in the Final Four.
Where do you rank him?
He barely beat Duke in the Elite Eight. Yeah. Then he beat a very good Illinois team, which was one of the better teams in the Big Ten this year, one of the few teams that beat Michigan this year. If he's able to do that against Michigan, oh my God, he might be because the best coach of all time is Coach K, just based off of that. Then number 2, a lot of people say Roy Williams in the modern era. Dan Hurley should be number 2. I'll put him over Izzo.
Okay. What about not Bill Self, the Nova coach?
I know Jay Wright.
Jay Wright.
Okay, I gotta redo this list. I'm gonna say though, Izzo is 5 right now. Jay Wright's at 4. Bill Self's at 3.
Dean Smith.
Dang. I just know that out of all the coaches that have had that are up there historically, Dan Hurley is going to have a strong resume for himself. Like this,
he could be.
If he's able to pull that off, that tournament run would be the equivalent to Rick Carlisle's 2011 Dallas Mavericks run in the playoffs.
Yeah,
where he played the best teams throughout the entire time.
When I see Danny Hurley, it reminds me of the early 90s and Bobby Hurley on Duke and how they shocked the world when they beat Jerry Tarkanian's UNLV, which was seeking to repeat for a national title. Stranger things have happened. I'm rooting for UConn. As far as John Wooden goes, 10 national titles at UCLA.
John Wooden is his own tier. That's like trying to. We're talking about right now. That's like saying, Will Chamberlain's the GOAT. That's like saying Bill Russell's the GOAT. He won 11 titles. Like we already know about Bill Russell.
Don't insult old people, Donovan. We're still here. We're not dead yet.
In your own tier. That's the thing. It's just there's different tiers. Like he's the best of his era. We're talking about just the modern era right now over the last 25, 30 years. Dan Hurley, just based off his resume right now for what he's done with UConn, he has already won multiple national championships, won back-to-back national championships at that. Yeah. There's a case for him if he's able to pull this off. There's a strong
that's a good point. Score predictions for tonight.
I said it on the Sports Shark Tank earlier. I think Michigan's going to win 95-73.
Whoa, okay. I'm saying Michigan's going to win 80-68, but Michigan's going to be up 20 for most of the game.
I'm going UConn 90, Michigan 87, but I'll tell you
90 on Michigan.
3-point game. That's bold.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, you can't forget about the beautiful song "One Shining Moment" after the game is over. Doesn't that give you goosebumps? Come on, you got to love that.
Yeah, Jason, I think we got to worry about Central Connecticut State in basketball before we worry about UConn.
They had 2 guys that the thing is, if Rutgers wanted to do that year, it would have been the 2024-2025 year when they had Harper and Bailey.
And look how
they went to NIT.
Doing good too. They're both doing good.
Fire Rutgers coach. Isn't like the fans like totally dissatisfied with him?
Yeah, and the fucking dude, Kelly Zinn has said he's going to be here another year too, but he's been on the hot seat for like 3 years now.
He should have been fired the minute that team did not go to a title. Did not go. I mean,
they did just fire the women's head
anything
coach.
in the Big Ten tournament, and that team did not get an at-large bid, despite having 2 top 5 picks.
Yeah, insane, and they were number 2 and 3 in their class.
That's like if Duke during the year where Cooper Flagg and Con Knippel were on that team, they didn't get past the first round of the tournament.
Although I don't know how the hell did Cooper Flag, Con Knipple, Tyrese Proctor, Kalman Maluwak, how did that team not win it all?
I don't know.
Houston was able to grab rebounds. That's why.
Houston was led by LJ Cryer.
Houston, Cryer had a good game, but it was just Houston was dominating the offensive glass. And that's why they were able to win that Final Four. Because Duke had a 14-point lead.
Yep.
How is Cooper Flag doing in the NBA?
Amazing.
51 as a 19-year-old.
He dropped 51 points 2 days ago, and then yesterday he
had 45 against Braun?
Against LeBron.
Do you think against Arizona, Michigan shot a huge high percentage from the field? Do you think they're going to really be able to match that?
Yes.
It doesn't matter if they do or don't. Their defense is otherworldly.
They've scored 90 in every tournament. They've scored 90 or better in every tournament game this year.
Honestly, their closest game might have been the first round.
Who have they lost?
Their closest game was Alabama. Their closest game was when they were up by 5 against Alabama at halftime. That was their closest game.
They were tied in the first round. I forget against who that was. Was it Penn?
Oh, Howard?
Howard, yeah.
Who did
but that was only for 3 minutes.
No, they were tied at halftime.
Oh, really? Well, who did Michigan lose to this year?
Purdue in the Big Ten championship. They lost to Wisconsin, which that's funny.
Wisconsin had a really good offense.
They lost to Duke by 2, I remember. And then they lost to one other team. I forget who.
It's going to be close.
I think it was Illinois, but if it wasn't,
I
recant my statement.
Yeah, it was that Wisconsin loss. I think that was the first loss of the year for them. That was ridiculous because Wisconsin didn't even make they did. They just I forget what round they were in the tournament, but they weren't very good.
Oh, I got it mixed up. Illinois beat them last year.
Illinois was. I had Illinois
Michigan beat them by 14.
I had Illinois going to the Final Four last year, and of course they did it this year. Hey, guess who had Iowa? Guess who had Iowa over Florida in their bracket though? This guy, round 32.
How'd you do in your brackets, guys?
I did terrible, but that's one that I'm taking to the grave.
I'll admit to it. I was living in La La Land. I wanted a scenario where it would be Long Island University playing against Hofstra in the Final Four. Because that would be the only way where those two teams would meet. Because Hofstra won the CAA. LIU, my school, they won the NEC. So they were the 16th seed. I think Hofstra was the 13th seed. Hofstra lose to Bama in the first round, and then LIU lost to Arizona. At that time 1 seed Arizona.
I don't think
I was thinking maybe there's a possibility where Long Island meets up in the Final Four, and I just hope that game would just be
the Final
only
Four
played in Long Island. I wanted that game only played in Long Island.
The Final Four of what? What are you talking about? The LIU in the Final Four of what? You mean
of NCAA?
Forget it.
Yeah.
You got to give LIU credit, seriously. I mean, a smaller school that really competes on a very high level. So, Donovan, you're going – it's a very good school.
I thought there was a possibility because during the year, I'm not going to go too much of a tangent on this. LIU has had some quad 2 wins during a stretch of their season. They played against the 8th seed in this year's tournament, Georgia. They had a halftime lead against Georgia. They ended up only losing by 10 against Georgia, and they had the lead through most of that second half. Georgia just went on a run in the final 7 minutes. They barely lost to Mississippi State. They barely lost to FIU. So these are schools that are bigger programs than what LIU is, and they sized up kind of well to what Arizona was offering. Arizona has a 7-footer. LIU has a 7'1" guy.
Did you guys see Rutgers lose by 2 to Michigan State twice this year?
They lost. LIU lost by 2 to Michigan. You got to give LIU a lot.
No, that was Rutgers.
Rutgers, he's talking about.
Oh no!
So we lose to Central Connecticut State, but then we only lose by 2 to Michigan State.
LIU does something Rutgers hasn't, and that's Central Connecticut State twice.
Sports is like that. On any given day,
I understand why CCSU won that game. Seeing them play in person, Darren Smith Jr., the star player and NEC Player of the Year for the conference, he played for Central Connecticut. He averaged 20 throughout the year. He's gonna be a really good player. I think he might transfer, but if he stays, CCSU might be the team to beat in the NEC next year.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the guys for LIU are transferring out or have had their final year of eligibility this year.
I agree. So, great discussion, guys. I know we were going to talk about the defense tonight, but we've already gone an hour and 15 minutes into it, and the national title game is coming up shortly. We will see who is right. I say 87-90 in favor of Connecticut. I mean 90-87. You guys think I'm crazy? I would
say if that score ends up happening, Adam, go buy yourself a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Will do. Any final thoughts, guys?
We're entering a new era of college football, and it's shocking to see that because I'm going to be part of a era that a lot of people might forget about in the next 15 years, and which was phase one of NIL. NIL happened when I was in my senior year. They were talking about it in the courts. It was primarily only allowed in California. USC and UCLA originally were the first two schools to agree to the idea of name, image, and likeness in the courts. And then I come to school in 2022, and NIL started to go from brand deals, NIL Club, the app that a lot of athletes have where they put you on the deals and you make a little bit of money off of it. It went from that to schools full on giving out $5 to $6 million deals to players, and players trying to leave whenever they wanted to and whenever they wanted to. And I saw the good side of it where a lot of my friends who ended up going to FBS schools, shout out Mashu Giwa, shout out Elijah St. John, he currently plays at Purdue. I saw them be able to go from smaller schools and make a name for themselves and go to bigger schools and be able to create wealth and create generational wealth for their family. While I've also seen players that were on my team go into the portal and be stuck in the portal forever because it is only the top 2% of players in the portal actually get out of there and go to a different school. 1% of those players actually go to the school that they originally wanted it to go. So a lot of people are saying the transfer portal is an issue. It was more of a lot of people were taking those risks, and the good results were the only things that were published to the media. We're only seeing players get $5 million deals. We're only seeing players be able to pull up in designer clothes or be posted up with a cyber truck. We're not hearing a lot of news of players that were really good at their school. They were getting good amount of playing time in their first 2 years. They decided to go to the portal, and they were stuck in there because nobody else wanted to give them a chance to come to their school, and they ended up going to be a walk-on somewhere. Those are actual stories. Our players going into the portal and recognizing that they're not what it takes to be as a player in the portal, ended up going to JUCO. I just hope that these rules end up fixing the current state of college sports. I don't think there's a situation where it needs to be saved. At the end of the day, throughout this entire era, the NIL era, the NCAA have made $1 billion each year in revenue. So their pockets aren't hurting. So I wonder how this is going to affect the future. It's not going to affect this year. It's most likely going to play a huge role in recruiting and the 2026 offseason.
Fair point.
The 2027 offseason.
Yeah, I don't really have that much. I'm still just curious overall how this is going to look once it's off paper and in effect. And, I'm interested to see how players react to it. Will they be upset? Will they understand? There will be players who are upset, but we'll have to see how it's reacted to emotionally versus logistically. Are there going to be amendments? I think so. What are those amendments going to be? I'm very interested to see how this looks for Rutgers, but also just for college football in general.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that they're finally addressing it. I think there'll be some growing pains along the way, but ultimately I think we'll come out with a system that's far better than it is today. And with that, we will certainly get to our discussion of the defense next week. As always, we will be here at 7 p.m. every Monday. If you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. But, guys, great discussion, as always. And until next week, go Scarlet Knights.
Go Scarlet Knights.